Politics, where politics always rocks. You've just been rocked by Rockin' Politics.
Welcome back to Rockin' Politics. I'm your host, Hillary Raimo. Joining me today is John G. Heim. He is the co-founder of the Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement, and he's going to be talking to us today about the harmful effects happening now by the Lake O discharges. You're going to hear all about what this is, what's going on down there. Now, I personally did a 2-hour program when the BP oil spill hit. You can find that in the archives of my YouTube channel. And the topic at the time was extremely explosive for a lot of different reasons. Now, as I've returned to the Sarasota area of Florida and the west side there, the Gulf Coast side, it's become pretty evident that there have been some ongoing problems in the water systems. So doing this show is really important for all of us because we have the Michigan Flint water crisis happening. We have other areas of the United States starting to pop up on the radar, showing that water is becoming an issue, that the contaminants inside of our water is becoming something that we should all be educated on and better understand, along with understanding the recourse that we have to our politicians, to the leaders that are in charge of this country. We need to know. So welcome, John. Thanks so much for being here. Give us a little bit of background starting off about exactly what you're dealing with down there and what the Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement is.
Well, first of all, yes, what we're dealing with is something called the Lake Okeechobee discharges. It has been going on for just about 80 years now when they had man-made connected our river, which is the Caloosahatchee, to Lake Okeechobee and also the St. Lucie River on the East Coast. And the reason being was, through history, they were looking to basically drain the Everglades out and develop on it. So they had to send the water somewhere. And throughout the history, it basically destroyed not only our local communities, such as the Caloosahatchee River, for example, which through the Lake Okeechobee discharges is no longer classified a river itself. It is now classified as the C-43 canal, so therefore cannot receive federal or state funding for any kind of help in regards to ecological manner. So yes, of course, the problem we're dealing with here is called the Lake Okeechobee discharges. The water basically comes from Lake Okeechobee itself into our Caloosahatchee River here on the West Coast and comes all the way down to our local estuaries and beach fronts, such like that. I don't have to remind you that we here located on coastal fronts rely 100% on tourism. If you are to not have clean water, you are not to have tourism. So we as a group started up about 20 years ago to basically not only defend but fight for our lives because we realized that, not only economically we're dependent upon a clean water, but, ecologically speaking, that's who we are as well because we're island folk, So we, for 20 straight years, have very much been active as, activists through the Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement. And a lot of us like to call ourselves community members, which seems to be, a term that's used not as much when it comes to these kinds of situations because we are not activists. We're not protesters or rabble-rousers or troublemakers. We're just community members standing up for our community.
Now, you believe that clean water is a basic human right. You spoke in front of Congress in 2015 about the harmful effects. You were also recognized in 2014 by the United States Great American Rivers Association as a river champion for outstanding work for the river waterways. Do you feel like you're kind of a spokesperson for the waterways? I mean, if you don't do it, who else will kind of thing, and maybe you'll inspire other people to do it. So the bigger message then becomes awareness, yes?
Awareness, yes, can be, pretty much on several fronts. We always, as a group, have a mantra that speaks to the best member of our group, which, by the way, at this point is 12,000 locally strong and hundreds of thousands strong on the South Florida front. So our saying is the best member of our group, Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement, is the newcomer, the first person who joins that brand new day, like today, for instance, because the idea is, what we call ourselves in our actions is demonstrate to educate, because we believe education and awareness is the biggest weapon to be used when it comes to righting a wrong here, when it comes to our water quality issues.
Yeah, you also I want to note that you created the River Kids Youth All Eco Art Educational Platform to lead the young people with knowledge of solutions to pollution from the Lake O discharges. So you really are taking it to the next level, where you reach out to community and gather the community to educate them and to teach the younger generations, because really this is going to be their problem on a really large scale. And I commend you for that. Who can we recognize in the positive end of helping to create a cleanup effort for this? Who would you like to recognize in Florida from a political standpoint that has done a good job?
You mean politically speaking?
Sure.
Well, yeah, okay. That sounds like a multi-point question. The River Kids, of course, yes, is a youth ecological organization that we have started up on the East Coast in the Stewart area, and here on the West Coast, the Fort Myers Beach area, where we even work and institute our message within the public school systems and such like that, to where our children basically use art through expression to be celebrated when it comes to standing up and saving our ecological matter, and recognizing as people who live on an island depend 100% on the actual ecological matter. So we are family with, marine life and water itself. You don't have to be reminded that water is the basic, usage for life. You can have many of these movements are out there, but without water, they can no longer continue to be a movement. So we teach our children very clearly from the get-go that, clean water and is a basic human right. And all the way down to being involved when it comes to the Lake Okeechobee discharges through education and also participation in our demonstrations. And they even have gone to the state capitol with us and spoke to the legislation there. And as far as Washington, D.C. in Congress, where we had one young girl spend the 2 minutes that is allocated for each person to speak to Congress. And she stayed silent while she gave each congressperson dead oysters because of that year's discharges effects. We had lost 100% of our oyster population. So her silent protest spoke volumes at a young age, and we teach this.
Sometimes dramatic does the job. That's how I see it. Now, do you feel that this contamination of the water and of the land in Florida is tied and can be connected back to the BP oil spill?
Well, it'd be foolish to say that the BP oil spill.
Saying that? Am I grasping straws saying that, or is it something that could substantially, realistically, go back to that kind of big, powerful contamination and had the long-term effects? Looking at long-term effects of the BP oil spill, or is this a bigger picture, or is this a more of a local picture? How do you see it?
Well, let's look at it this way. The combination of all of the above is pretty much the definition of a toxic mess when it comes to a dead body of water. The combination of the BP oil spill, the Lake Okeechobee discharges, the lack of usage, and slap in the face to the voters of Amendment 1 to better our water quality as a state, and especially the Gulf of Mexico has really suffered into a dead zone, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I had the opportunity to speak with a BP executive insider back in 2014 who claimed that the reason why we had such a disaster happen in the first place was because the government had moved in to protect the oil resources that were being stored in the salt mines, and the government had moved in to protect those salt mines and protect the leakage and protect the underground salt caverns where it's all being stored. versus moving into helping the people during Hurricane Katrina and some other things that had happened in the Gulf Coast area along with the BP spill. It was kind of like a distraction kind of thing. So this is a really complicated topic. And you can hear.
Well, it's very similar too, if I may add, because in our particular case, the Lake Okeechobee discharges, it's based around an agricultural giant, which is U.S. Sugar. So the exact same, pay off all the politicians, hush mentality, sink the problem to the bottom of the ocean, so to speak, and everything is hunky dory, as they have been caught, the U.S. sugar industry, by breaking the Federal Clean Water Act by using back pumping, which is back pumping their chemicals into the lake, down our rivers, and into our waterways where, young children and pregnant women and everyone in between swim in those chemicals. So you're exactly right to say these entities that basically have power over our politicians who seem to forget that they work for us are basically being hijacked, and so is our waterways, and people are dying as a result.
And a lot of people will say, "Oh, this is a conspiracy." Well, let's make it clear here. This is a conspiracy fact. This is not a theory. These things are happening, and for most people, we don't think what's in our water. We take showers, we cook with it, we wash our dishes with it, we go to work, we go about our lives, and we don't have time to test the water. We don't think about it until something like this happens in Southwest Florida or Flint, Michigan, where it brings it to the forefront of minds and people can see into what big industry is having an effect on the natural environment around us. What are your thoughts? But
at the same time, they don't, because fear takes over. And to give you a great example, our local Lee County Health Department, since the discharge has begun, which was months ago, and right here in the middle of what is called season, so it's high tourist season, literally hundreds of thousands of people are here, and the only thing they tested for was bird droppings. So they are not doing the adequate job of local leadership to display truthfully what is in these waters. So that's an incorrect statement, because they're not doing the job when it comes to any local leadership levels, including the health department. The health department's job is to test the water and inform the public. And if it is to the point where it may be off the charts when it comes to bacterial levels, just use an example, they must by law put up signs to warn people and even close beaches, which presently here where I live locally in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, there has not been one sign up and never has been in history to stay out of the water during the discharges.
Interestingly enough, I was in Sarasota, Lido Beach specifically, a few months ago, and they had red tide come in, and it was over the Thanksgiving holiday. And so what people had done was, hush, hush, nobody talks about it because it was a tourist week. There was a high level of tourism in there for the holiday, and people were getting sick, and some of my family members came home with red tide symptoms. And there was dead fish washing up on the beach every day. And then so what we did was we turned on the local news, because the local news is really where you find some of the more, nitty-gritty details. And sure enough, there was thousands of dead fish washing up in some of the canals, the waterways that go into the streets. Nobody was talking about it.
If I may add to that, what that is, complacency. And to be quite honest with you, and this will be very easy for your viewers to understand because of an epic movie that we all know, Jaws, the movie. You remember Jaws, the movie, correct?
Of course.
So we, the activists who are demanding clean water, are Sheriff Brody as the character. The political system, which was the mayor in the movie, when was approached by Sheriff Brody and said, hey, we need to close the beaches because of a danger, he had said, quiet, it's a holiday weekend. And guess who the shark is? It's the water itself. So we are Jaws.
Wow, I like that analogy. Thank you. That's pretty insightful. It makes people think, and that's what we're here to do. If you could get one message out, what would that message be to people listening to this show? How can we really act on something that perhaps isn't local, but it's something that we share globally as a problem? What can we do? What do you suggest we do?
We have to, of course, use social media, which is a very crystal clear vessel for spreading information to get it to a national level. the only way, unfortunately, in this society is for it either to actually have to happen to you personally before people respond and do the right thing, or if basically the national news gets involved and really makes a big story of it, such as the Flint, Michigan crisis. But remember, it took forever for them to knock on a door and get that story through when it comes to the Flint, Michigan crisis. So what we need people to do is become educated through our awareness, watch our actions, join our group, the Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement page on Facebook, and basically follow along, educate, learn, and write to all of our state Congress people, our legislators, our president, our governor, and demand the buy of the land just south of Lake Okeechobee and send the water clean through clean water components south right into the Everglades to restore what was once called the River of Grass. The River of Grass was the actual natural flow of Florida. It came from the Kissimmee. You can imagine a zigzag nature to where the government had trenched that out, and it would come rushing down into the lake, and then it used to zigzag naturally right into the Everglades through a Mother Nature's gift to cleanse the water itself, which makes the Everglades so majestical. So it's basically cut off the Everglades to where the Everglades are dying. Anytime you hear the Everglades dying, it is because of the Lake Okeechobee discharges not allowing the water to flow south. So this affects everybody globally who loves a natural, beautiful icon such as the Everglades.
Not only a natural icon, but it's also the natural water filter, like you just said. It's a part of the system that we have stuck a clog in, and we're seeing the results of that clog. And people have to own up to the fact that nature has its own its own ways of revitalizing itself and removing toxic contaminations, and we can learn a lot from her. Now you recently sat down with Kurt Clausen in Washington, D.C. to ask him to create a bill to buy the land south of Lake O. Tell us about that.
Yes, the deal has actually been on the table of the governor's office to buy the land from the sugar industry, in the EAA area, which is called the Everglades Agricultural Area. And that would be the quick fix to sending the water south. The deal was struck way back right before Governor Charlie Crist had stepped aside. So the deal has been sitting on Governor Rick Scott's desk since that for quite a number of years. And basically the deadline is coming up and has passed, and, at times is considered. So, at a much more inflated rate, basically. And the only person in power, I might add, to buy that land would be Rick Scott and the Florida legislation. So we, as a community of Florida and citizens statewide, voted on something called Amendment 1, which was meant to buy that land. We voted on it at an astounding over 78% statewide, and they used that money instead to buy police cars and use funding for other areas that were lacking funding. So they not only basically refused to buy the land, but they used our taxpayers' funds through an amendment and broke the law by using the funds inadequately towards saving the Everglades. And I might add that this isn't just about pretty water on beaches. Okay, this is our drinking water supply. The sugar industry is in the business for water to basically instill their crops have water. We are running out of water in Southwest Florida. The reason we chant constantly that clean water is a basic human right is because it is very quickly here in Florida turning into a commodity due to the lack of clean water. We soon will be having water shipped in, just like California, to do our laundry, drink our water, and bathe our children.
This is a really important topic for everybody on this planet, because without water, we don't live. Life on this planet will be drastically different without water, clean water, pure water, water that's not contaminated. We have the power to do something about it. John G. has joined us and enlightened us with some very, very important information. Thank you so much for being here, John. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to reach out and help, what's the best way to do that?
You can certainly look us up on Facebook and join our group called the Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement. It is SWFL Clean Water Movement. And we have over 12,000 people strong locally here, and we work with another group which you can look up called bullsugar.org. That is BULL sugar.org, and that is run by a man by the name of Kenny Hinkle, who is the president of that on the East Coast, who unfortunately suffers the same reality as we do from the Lake Okeechobee discharges. So we are a united front when it comes from the west coast of Florida through the Everglades of a person and people such as Betty Osceola and the tribe, who is down there in the middle of the Everglades being affected, and of course the East Coast, the St. Lucie area and Stewart region. So we work relentlessly as a united front as clean water activists.
Great. Everybody get involved. Get involved some way. If you're local to Florida, reach out to John and his organizations and get involved. If you don't live in Florida, get involved anyway. Share this podcast. Talk about it on social media. Use your social media platforms to get information out and shared. Thanks so much, John. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
And thank you. And there's one last thing I might say about the world listening right now. Let's be very clear to each other that none of you come to Florida to go to the sugar industry. You guys come here for our beautiful beaches and our natural resources and streams and natural beauty of Florida itself. So let's keep in mind why you come here, and be sure to know who is trying to stop the natural beauty of Florida from you coming here. That would be the sugar industry.
The sugar industry. Send them a box of rocks. Go to sendrocksnow.com. Make your voice heard. I'm Hillary Raimo, and this has been